Our next speaker understands there are those who would seek to do us harm all throughout the globe. He understands the profound folly of President Obama's global apology tour. I'm very pleased to recognize two individuals who will then introduce Secretary Donald Rumsfeld. Pleased to recognize Brad O'Leary and our chairman David Keene to recognize Secretary Donald Rumsfeld.
Defender of the Constitution Award. And for the purpose of this award and describing it, I'd like to introduce Brad O'Leary, and at the end of that we will bring out our recipient.
To honor someone who for many years as CPAC has gathered to talk about what history will be or become. He's been part of that history that we talked about under Ronald Reagan and under the Bushes. He made tons of wonderful things happen for America, and he fought our battles against enemies, both foreign and domestic. We're going to bring him up, but we have another special guest who's coming up with him. David?
Secretary Rumsfeld, would you join us here for the...
Hello everyone, welcome to Global Government News. Today is Monday, February 14th, 2011, and I'm Darko. Welcome to part 2 of this news bulletin, everyone. I just want to make one quick comment on that first video that you saw with Donald Rumsfeld. I don't know if you noticed that blonde woman that was right there on the bottom left of the screen. She was like, when everyone was booing when Rumsfeld finally came out, she was looking around like looking back and kind of shaking her head saying, who's booing? Who's booing? Like, why would there be people booing Donald Rumsfeld? He's so conservative. That's why we're here, to celebrate conservatism. We're to go over and expand the empire. That's conservative. But she's stupid and she doesn't understand that. Anyways, please visit my website, ggnonline.com. That's www.ggnonline.com. We left off with this. Mufti warns of revolution in Saudi Arabia. and it's because of poverty and unemployment, and it's likely to face a revolution like those in Egypt and Tunisia. So then we move to this. Bahrain's king gives $3,000 to every family. Bahrain's king has ordered that each family in the tiny Gulf monarchy be given $3,000 to mark the 10th anniversary of a national charter for reforms. And we move on here, and it says police clash with Bahrainian protesters, so it finally kicked off. It says here, witnesses say police in Bahrain have violently clashed with pro-democracy protesters during the Day of Rage rallies across the country. Now we have red and yellow protesters back on Bangkok streets. Anti-government protests have filled the streets of Bangkok again as both red shirt and yellow shirt demonstrations took place not far away from each other. Then we move on to Algeria. Algeria shuts down internet and Facebook as protests mount. This is just like Egypt. Internet providers were shut down and Facebook accounts deleted across Algeria on Saturday as thousands of pro-democracy demonstrators were arrested in violent street demonstrations. And I thought this was a funny quote. I was listening to Alan Watt about 2-3 days ago, and the way he said it, man, it was so funny and just insightful. Was he basically said, all these people in Egypt are, crying for democracy, and these other countries as well, like Algeria. And he's like, well, now they have it, and once they have it, maybe they can come over to the United States and tell us what it is, because we've never had it. And that's pretty much what he said in a paraphrase, and he's right. I don't know what they're going to get, but they may get the same thing as us, which is military-industrial complex and politicians who lie and funnel money often into that pharma complex, the agri complex, the banking complex, the military complex, and then they can vote, and then they can, do all the other things like puppet leaders and that. So anyways, we have this. Opposition Iran police arrest dozens of protesters, and that's what we were watching in that first couple of videos. So security forces fired tear gas to disperse thousands of opposition supporters chanting death to the dictator while marching towards Tehran Square. Dozens arrested during clashes with police in central Iran. Clinton slams hypocrisy of Iranian government. And then we have Germans protest nuclear waste transport. I guess there's radioactive waste that's just been chilling there in a temporary storage. And it says here, security forces in Yemen beat protesters. Yemeni police with clubs on Saturday beat anti-government protesters who were celebrating the resignation of Egyptian leader Hosni Mubarak and demanding the ouster of their own president. And then we have Pakistani court issues arrest warrant for former President Pervez Musharraf over Bhutto killing. It says a Pakistani anti-terrorism court has issued an arrest warrant for former President Pervez Musharraf over the assassination of ex-Prime Minister Benazir Bhutto, a public prosecutor says. And then we go to this. Musharraf snubs arrest warrant. Former Pakistani President Musharraf says he will not comply with and attend a court over the assassination of Benazir Bhutto after an arrest warrant was issued for him. Then we have confessed Pakistani assassin gets Valentine's love, and says the confessed killer of a liberal Pakistani governor pleaded guilty today to a murder he said was justified under Islam, while outside the court supporters bearing flowers and cards wished him happy Valentine's Day. And we have going into Pakistan here. Pakistan charged detained American with murder. And then that's what we covered about the U.S. diplomat or possible CIA agent. 3 civilians killed in Afghanistan. Then we have Afghanistan to probe U.S. abductions. Residents demand an immediate probe into the raid by U.S.-led forces that resulted in the abduction of several local figures. And it says here, no information is available on the fate of the abductees. And it says here, Governor Noor said such unauthorized operations by foreign forces will only lead to the Afghan people losing their trust in the government. And here's a little spooky image that you can put in your mind. Witnesses said 2 NATO reconnaissance aircraft and 9 helicopters hovered over the area, terrifying residents. The foreign soldiers then stormed the police chief's house and kidnapped him. They also abducted a local cleric along with a few other people. Says here, police headquarters is hit in Afghan south. Then authorities find mass grave in Iraq. Iraq security forces have discovered a mass grave in the Diyala province containing more than 150 bodies killed during the U.S.-led occupation of Iraq. And it says here, Israel used excessive force on flotilla. Turkey says it has unveiled its final inquiry, a report on the Israeli deadly attack on a Gaza-bound aid convoy last year, which proves Israel used excessive force and trampled international law. Then we move to this. Israel vows fear of MB's gain in Egypt. Israel's military chief, Barak, has expressed concern that if power transition happens quickly in Egypt, Muslim Brotherhood will come into power. And it says here, Israeli army ready for all eventualities. And I just want to put out there, I believe that this is actually UK funded or backed. So Israeli army ready for all eventualities, says Prime Minister. Israeli military is, quote, ready for all eventualities as the Arab and Muslim world undergoes, quote, an earthquake. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said on Monday, just days after Egypt's collapse. And we have Israeli embassy shut down in Cairo. Then Israeli soldiers shoot 2 Gazans. Japanese police keep watch on Muslims. Reports reveal that the Japanese police have been conducting a close surveillance of the Muslim community living in the East Asian country. After Mubarak, U.S. intelligence officers look to monitor Mideast aftershocks. And it goes on, here's the question U.S. intelligence officials are now asking themselves, who's next? Well, it just depends on who they decide, right? Whatever dictator they want to put in, whether color revolution they want to instigate or provoke. And it says here, though the White House hailed a pivotal Egyptian President Hosni Mubarak's decision Friday to resign and transfer power, the historic moment raises immediate concerns about stability in the region. And then you go down here, because this is what I was looking for, right? Trying to stay ahead of the wave, the CIA has put together a 35-member task force to look at where the uprisings may spread. In other words, they're going to spread them. Mufti warns of revolution in Saudi Arabia. We already covered that, but look at this. Egypt uprising weakens ailing Saudi king. So it's messing with his health. The already ailing Saudi Arabian king's health condition has reportedly deteriorated seriously due to his efforts to prevent the ouster of former Egyptian President Hosni Mubarak. Then we go to this. News analysis. Japan, Russia to continue to lock horns over Islands Row. Japanese emperor in hospital for heart test. Japan's emperor was hospitalized Friday for heart test. The Imperial Household Agency said the 77-year-old monarch was to spend the night at the University of Tokyo Hospital for observation after angiogram of his coronary arteries. The agency said doctors ordered the test after a routine checkup in January revealed symptoms of insufficient blood flow to the heart. So then we have Russia plans unprecedented Arctic trip, and that kind of goes in with this. Japan continues to lock horns. And Russia is kind of all over the place right now with their ships and that. And then we're going to move on here to rights groups. Rights groups say China activists beaten over video. A Chinese activist lawyer and his wife have been beaten by police and state security officials for making a secret video that shows their life under strict house arrest, a rights group said Friday. And you can check out that. The links will be posted. Sarkozy condemns multiculturalism. French President Nicolas Sarkozy has censored multiculturalism a failure, joining other Western leaders that have already rejected the notion despite boasting freedom as a founding principle. And Sarkozy, right here, he says, I don't want a society where communities coexist side by side and that, quote, France will not welcome people who do not agree to melt into a single community. We have been too busy with the identity of those who arrived and not enough with the identity of the country that has accepted. Sarkozy also emphasized that he does not want Muslims to pray on the street. He said his controversial remarks come as Western fears of rising Muslim population grow across Europe. Official reports show out of the 65 million people living in France, at least 5 million of them are Muslims, making the European country with the largest Muslim population. This is while Muslims in France still have no representatives in the French parliament. So there's democracy. French teachers rally against job cuts. Tens of thousands of French teachers have walked out across the country in protest at planned job cuts due to come in force in September. So finishing up with the second part here, the International Monetary Fund Director Strauss-Kahn calls for new world currency. We already covered this in our economic news bulletin from the 12th. France mulls ditching money as sole reserve currency. There's also, I received a video today by Smoking Joe Trainer. Well, I didn't receive it by him, but it includes him. And it's basically talking about how oil is going to be traded in a different currency and not U.S. dollars, possibly the yuan. So that's not good news if that's true. You also have China and Russia trading bilaterally, basically dumping the U.S. dollar bilaterally, and they did that about a month ago. So We have Iran to expand coastal missile systems, and then Iran to launch long-range radar systems. Was Judge John Roll the actual target of Gifford shooting? And you can check that out. The link will be posted. That's a very good point. The judge who was against health care was actually the target. And Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker readies National Guard against the unions. This is GGN, and I'm Darko.